Alrighty, so now I'm going to explore a couple of ethical theories and apply them to the ethics of having a paywall, blocking access to news and other such information. So firstly, I wanted to consider the duties of the moral agent, which is, of course, a publication. So in being funded by the public via subscriptions, journalists are allowed to stay independent, or they can stay independent. And as we know, independent journalism is really, really important. It's a pillar of our democracy. It is absolutely integral to journalism's function that it stays independent. And we have over here this handy dandy code of ethics provided to us by the Society of Professional Journalists. And the one that I think is really relevant in this situation is act independently. And it's a little blurry, so I'll read what it says. It says, the highest and primary obligation of ethical journalism is to serve the public. So I was thinking about that, and on one hand, a paywall allows journalists to act independent, which is, of course, in line with the code of ethics, and not be swayed by another party like the government or advertisers, like we talked about. However, the cost to a subscription and a paywall that serves as kind of like the gatekeeper of information, it limits a journalist's ability and their obligation to serve the entirety of the public. Instead, they're just serving a small fraction of the public that has the expendable income to spend on a subscription to a publication that is more or less non-essential when it comes to like basic survival needs. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you can't really afford a $12 subscription fee is a lot. However, the alternatives that we addressed earlier force journalists to be dependent on different sources of funding and removes their loyalty to the public. Instead, they are loyal to the advertiser or the government or any other plan C, any other alternative. The overall good that paywalls serve in this context is, like I said, allow media to stay independent and free from bias and outside hand. It allows them to keep their loyalty to readers and the public, as it should be. And it provides much needed funding to the press because money is everything, unfortunately. And the press is no exception to this rule. Additionally, there is a lot of harm caused by paywalls. Like I've been saying, it widens the information access divide between rich and poor, rich being those with expendable income and poor being those without. Also, just overall readership goes down, so it ends up being pretty bad for these publications. So for an example, when the New York Times implemented a paywall, their readership decreased 16.8% when they implemented their paywall. And that's a lot of people, so that's kind of a bummer. Also, it allows for the proliferation of clickbait, fake news, borderline conspiracy theory articles, because, if the well-researched, well-thought-out journalism is requires a subscription, then people are going to go to the clickbaity, like I said, borderline conspiracy theory articles based on disinformation that you would find scrolling through Facebook, because that stuff's free, because it is extremely profitable as it is. It doesn't need a subscription. And that leads me to my point that unfortunately, paywalls are just kind of a necessary evil when it comes to free independent press. Publications need money to function. Like I said, money is everything, and publications, whether we like it or not, are a business. They need funding from somewhere, and that's not just going to come out. That's not just going to be like, from the state, because then we have these issues. And so therefore, paywalls, like I said, necessary evil to funding the press. They're the only way to keep the press independent because, as we've seen, these alternatives do not result in an independent press. While they limit the press's ability to reach a wide audience, like I said, the suggested alternatives leave too much room for outside agendas and outside influence. Now, what would I do? Thank you so much for asking. If I were in charge of a publication, I would do some type of modified partial paywall in which some content would be free, the stuff that I deem to be most important for a functioning democracy and for everyone in the public to be able to access, stuff like breaking news, government coverage, public affairs, and stuff like extenuating circumstances like COVID or the Moscow murders, like we talked about earlier. I would keep some content behind a paywall, stuff that I deem to be personally less important for society to function and for people to know. Stuff like sports, entertainment, and like a life feature section. And then I would also include a modest amount of advertising because I would expect there to be a lot of a lack of funding with this modified paywall structure. Yeah, so the advertising would supplement this loss. A couple of ethical theories that have influenced my decision in this case is utilitarianism, which is, of course, the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And ensuring independent free press is the greatest good, personally, I think, of all time. I think it's not, and it's just not possible without funding. And funding, as we've established, is not possible without the use of paywalls restricting information. Therefore, implementing paywalls is in society's best interest, unfortunately. And then of course we come to the concept of deontology, which is what are our duties and who are these duties towards? So for journalists, our duty is towards the public. And we cannot fulfill this duty without funding, like I said. Accepting funding from other sources opens up lots of room for influence, which is very dangerous territory. Meanwhile, being funded by readers through subscriptions and donations as well, journalists' loyalty can remain to their readers and to the public. So yeah, unfortunately, like I said, paywalls are just a necessary evil here. Here's my works cited. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I enjoyed making it and researching it. And yeah, this is a topic I'm really interested because I've always hated paywalls, but now I've kind of I have a new perspective. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching.